Tavach. This week, unfortunately, we lost a very great chassid, Rabbi Shmuel Mנחem Mendel ben Reb Shneir Zalman Butman, who was among all the myriads of things that he did on behalf of Chabad and on behalf of the Jewish people, was he would always share stories on Motzei Shabbos from Malka. I want to dedicate our shir tonight to his memory. And I want to begin with a story that I saw myself. I wasn't didn't have the privilege to work closely with Rabbi Butman, but I did see him many occasions, many occasions, and learned from him directly. I had a group of people I would visit in the Empire State Building. That's been on film with every Friday. And Rabbi Butman had a Chabad center in the Empire State Building. That's how I got to see him a little more up close. But I wanted to share with you one story, which I think highlights who Rabbi Butman was, and something that we all could learn from, especially as we're coming from Parshas Pinchas. Parshas Pinchas talks about how one individual stood up for the truth when the whole world was silent, and he didn't pay attention to the silence of everyone else, but he knew what he could do and what he needed to do. And that's what brought salvation to Jewish people then. It was Rabbi Butman, among of his many responsibilities, he was also connected to arranging the Lag BaOmer festivities in Crown Heights. I'm not sure if that was every year or some years. I remember clearly there was thousands of children and parents participating in these festivities. He was organizing it all, and he was walking down Kingston Avenue with a group of people that were assisting in this huge undertaking. And there was a little boy who was young Malka, whose kippah fell off of his head. And Butman was dealing with all these thousands of children and adults and this whole big event. And he stopped, said, Yingala, child, watch out, your yarmulke fall off. And he waited till the child noticed and heard him, put his yarmulke back on his head. They continued on. And this was really emblematic of Rabbi Butman. He really, although he did a lot of things he had friends in the government, and he did a lot of efforts to connect with government leaders and city leaders on all kinds of occasions. But on the other hand, he didn't forget the individual. So this is something which the Rebbe said is the sign of a true leader, that for a true leader, Reb Yisrael and Klal Yisrael are the same. Mr. Yisrael and the Jewish people as a whole are the same. So on that note, I want to share with you the following story. The story was shared by Yosef Zupnik, who was from the Tash Chassidim in Canada, Kiryas Tash, and he heard the story from his father, Mendel Zupnik, who was present when the story took place. In the 1960s, there was a lot of discord, unfortunately, between Satmar Chassidim and Chabad Chassidim. It was came to a point where there was actually attacks. The Satmar Chassidim attacked many Chabad Chassidim. It's terrible. But before the attacks began, Chabad, on every holiday, as Rebbe instituted, would go to the various synagogues and bring joy to the various synagogues by sharing words of Torah and inspiration. And as Rebbe instituted, at every holiday, he asked each of his Hasidim to go to another shul, to another synagogue, and be a Param Chadash, be a new face, and to share inspiration, to share words of Torah, and just bring the holiday spirit in a greater way, but just by having a new face and sharing more inspiration. That was the idea. That's still done till today, Baruch Hashem, till Mashiach will come. So it was 1964, Tavshin Chavdalet, and these two Chabad gentlemen had walked in from Crown Heights to Williamsburg, and they came into a synagogue that was led by a certain Rabbi Lancet Rav. The Lancet Rav was named Rabbi Wagshel, was his real name, Rabbi Wagshel, and he was a descendant of the Rav Shitzer Rebbe's. Rav Shitzer Rebbe's were great tzaddikim in Europe, and he was a descendant of these Rebbe's, and he himself was a tzaddik in his own right. I don't know much about him, but just to tell you one thing, which could share how incredible this person must have been. When he heard how many people passed away in the 6-day war, he had a stroke and he passed away just from hearing that that Jews passed away. We all heard happened in Israel today. Just him hearing what happened, that gave him such a shock, and it bothered him so much, he passed away. Anyway, so in 1964, these two Chabad boys come to his synagogue, and they ask the Gabbai, the attendant of the synagogue, if they could have permission to share a few words. And the Gabbai said, well, he asked the rabbi, asked the Lancet Rav. The Lancet Rav, Rabbi Wagshel, immediately gave his permission and said, sure, I'll be happy for you to share a few words with us after Mincha. It was the 7th day of Pesach, and I'll be happy for you to share a few words. Okay. But there was, as I mentioned, there was a lot of friction at that time. And because there was a lot of friction, so this very respected Sadmar Chassid who attended this synagogue, as many Sadmar Chassidim would frequent this synagogue, and this Sadmar Chassid, elderly gentleman, a older Chassid, not just was he elderly, he was very respected. He wasn't only respected as a Sadmar Chassid among all other Sadmar Chassidim, but he was one of the most respected people in Williamsburg. And he said to Lancet Rav, he said, if you allow these Lubavitcher boys, Lubavitcher men to speak, I'm going to leave the synagogue. And the rabbi said, doesn't matter, I want them to speak. And the boys were, whatever they had to do their thing, they had to share their words of Torah. But they shared their words of Torah. But this elderly man didn't take this lightly. He said again, I'm leaving now, and I promise you I'll never come back here again. And the Lancet Rav said, that's fine, if you want to leave, you can leave. These boys need to speak. So the boys spoke. But this was quite a move, like it was quite a threat. And so Reb Mendel Zupnik, the father of Yosef Zupnik, who shared the story, he said after the boys spoke, he, together with other Hasidim, went over to the Lancet Rav and asked him, why is it that was so important for you that these Chabad boys speak? So he told them, let me tell you a story. He said, during World War II, he himself had a very hard time coming from Galicia, Poland, trying to find a place to escape to. And he ended up coming to Russia. And in Russia, he ended up moving to a town in Siberia. And he was the only Jew in this town. And there was a lot of anti-Semitism, and he was accused of being a spy. So it wasn't just an accusation, but they arrested him, and he was brought to trial. There were unfortunately people, anti-Semites, no doubt, who claimed that they knew firsthand that he was a spy, and they came to the court to testify that he is a spy. So he's standing in trial, and he has no evidence. He just speaks on his own behalf. He has no lawyer, he has no evidence. He speaks on his own behalf, and he says the following. He says, I'm not a spy for the Germans. I'm Jewish. I'm escaping the Germans. By the way, this wasn't the only person this happened to. Many Jews who escaped from Europe were accused of being spies. Unfortunately, they're escaping from the anti-Semitic Germans to come to the anti-Semitic Russians and accused of being spies. It happened. It sounds like a crazy story, but it happened many, many times. In fact, I was sharing the story this morning in our synagogue, and one man said, "Yeah, that happened to a friend of mine's father as well. The same exact thing. He was accused of being a spy." So he says to the judge, "I myself am a Jew. You can't accuse me of spying for the Germans. That would never happen." And second of all, he said, in general, the Jewish people are mandated by the Torah to be patriotic to their country. I am told by my religion to respect the country. Therefore, I wouldn't be a spy for another country. The judge listened. The Jew had no evidence, and there was evidence against him. And yet, the judge proclaimed, to the astonishment of the entire courtroom, that he is throwing this case out of court. That's ridiculous. Of course, he's not a spy, and he completely should be exonerated and let free immediately. Okay, it was a hush in the courtroom. Everyone was shocked. And then the judge calls over the Lancet Rav. He says to him, I want to invite you to come to my home tonight. So that's why Lancet Rav came to the judge's home. And the judge told the Lancet Rav the following thing. He said that when he was a young man, he was drafted into the Russian army, and he went to the previous Rebbe before his draft to get a blessing. I don't know the custom that the previous Rebbe had in the various blessings he gave for people who had to issues with a draft, but I know that the Rebbe Rashab would have 3 different expressions when he would be asked to give a blessing to help someone who was going to be drafted into the Red Army. One language he would use was, their eyes should not see you at all. That language meant, the blessing was, you will get a white card, you'll be completely exonerated, you won't be able to serve in the army at all. And yet another version, another similar version that meant it'll be difficult, but eventually you'll get out of it. Then there was a third version of blessing, which was, God should guide you wherever you go. Hashem should be with you wherever you go. That meant you are going to serve in the army. You're stuck. So the Lancet Rav, he went to the previous Rebbe to ask for a blessing for the draft. I'm not sure if he wanted to. The Rabbi Zupnik said he wasn't sure if he actually wanted to get out of the draft or not. But either way, he went to the previous Rebbe for a blessing. The previous Rebbe said that you are going to go up in rank, going to go higher and higher. And you should remember that the reason you're going up in rank, higher and higher, is only in order for you to be able to rescue one Jew one time. That's why you're going up in rank. That's a purpose of your greatness. So this judge told the Lancet Rav, Rabbi Wakshel, that these words of the previous Rebbe are etched into his heart and mind. And he always was waiting for the moment that he to fulfill the purpose of why he was appointed as a judge. Indeed, as the previous Rebbe said, went up rank higher and higher until he became this judge, became a judge. And now he said, I know that you are the person the previous Rebbe had in mind. And that's why, although he said, what I did when I exonerated you, I went against the law. Legally, the case was a clear case. There was witnesses. There was no holes in their testimony. Their testimony was a clear testimony, and therefore I should have completely agreed with the witnesses and the prosecutor and sentenced you to death immediately for treason. However, because of the words of the Rebbe, I decided to ignore legal protocol and to put myself in danger, because I don't have the right to decide what I want to do just because I'm a judge. But I went against legal protocol, and again, and I decided it doesn't matter what happens to me. This is the whole purpose of why I became a judge, as the Rebbe told me, and therefore that's why I let you free. So the Lancet Rav told the story to the Mendel Zupnik, and he said to him, if the Lubavitcher Rebbe sent one of his Chassidim to go and to have this hardship for so many years, just in order that he should be able to help one Jew, and now his Chassidim want to come and speak, should I not honor them and not honor their Rebbe and allow them to speak in my synagogue? That's the story that Rabbi Zupnik shared, and it highlights the idea of how everyone has to look at each individual as if they are Klal Yisrael, but as one Jew, as if he's the entire Jewish people. On that note, I want to share with you another story I just heard right before Shabbos from my dear friend Rabbi Baruch Shalom Zagli, the Rebbe's emissary in Diego, one of the Rebbe's emissaries in San Diego. He said that in his office, he has a picture of the Rebbe. where he is coming to the Rebbe to receive $1. But the picture isn't a very, how should I say this? Didn't make him happy to have this picture. Because in the picture, the Rebbe was looking at the person after him in the line. The Rebbe looked at him for a moment, and then the next person came in the line. The Rebbe looked at the next person. So although it was great to have a picture where you could see him and the Rebbe in the same picture, but it always bothered him. Whenever he looked at this picture for so many years, it always bothered him. Why is it that he that he couldn't get a better picture? Why he couldn't have a better memory, a better something to look at in his office every day, to see the Rebbe looking at him personally, to realize that he is in the Rebbe's vision. That's what bothered him. Anyways, a few years ago, his brother-in-law, Rabbi Yosef Radkin, is spending Passover in South Africa, and he messages him after Passover in Los Angeles, at 1 o'clock in the morning. He messages him a picture on WhatsApp of handwriting, and the handwriting says Baruch Shalom. That's his first name, and he asks him, "Can you tell me if you recognize this handwriting?" He says, "Yes, that's my handwriting. That's me. I wrote that." I said, "Okay. So when I come back to Los Angeles, I'll have a story for you and a gift for you." Okay. Came back took him back to California. Came back to California. He told him the following thing: there was someone going around collecting tzedakah in 770, and one young man gave this collector $20, but he asked him for change. So the collector gave him back $18 in change, and he looked at one of the dollars, and one of the dollars has writing on it, and it looked like $1 from the Rebbe, because many people, when they got $1 from the Rebbe, they would write down on the dollar their name and the date they got the dollar. So this dollar had some very illegible writing on it, and so the man who got the dollar just asked some random person in 770, I think it was Rabbi Chesky Holtzberg. He said, "Do you recognize this handwriting?" I mean, it's like asking, needle in a haystack. Do you recognize handwriting of anybody? Just sure recognize that handwriting. That's my friend Baruch Shalom Azagli. I know that handwriting. Baruch Shalom Azagli, his handwriting is terrible, and I recognize it. That's his handwriting. And he says, if you don't believe me, let's send a picture of his dollar to his brother-in-law. I have his brother-in-law's number. I don't have Baruch Shalom's number. I have his brother-in-law's number. Let's send a picture of this to Yosef Fratkin, and you could ask him. So that's what happened. He sent it to Yosef Fratkin. Yosef Fratkin testified, yes, indeed, Baruch Shalom testified that this is my handwriting. And so he got that dollar. What was that dollar from? That dollar was from the same occasion that he had a picture of in his office. The Rebbe at that time had given him $2. But $1 was he had. Another dollar he didn't know what happened to. He didn't even know that he was missing that dollar. And that dollar was returned to him many years later in 770 through this collector. The Rebbe gave him another dollar through the Rebbe's long arm, if you will, and sent him the same dollar back to him. And it really highlighted to him that although it looked like the Rebbe wasn't in that picture, they were looking at someone else, but boy, did that story highlight to him that the Rebbe was thinking about him. I want to share with you one more story. The Baal Shem Tov, it's customary to mention the Baal Shem Tov Motzei Shabbos. Baal Shem Tov taught that a Jew with his faith in Hashem is able to cross an ocean just with his faith. I'm going to share with you a story I heard from the person himself the story happened to. I can't share his name, it's a very private story. But it's a true story. I heard directly from the person this happened to. And the story highlights the faith of a Jew and the power of the faith of a Jew in Hashem. It's famous that the Rebbe, in general, discouraged people from doing sonograms during pregnancy. The Rebbe said that if the sonogram is for the purpose of something preventative, then the sonogram should be done. But if it's inquisitive, but just to find out information, then it should not be done. The rule of thumb is that don't do a sonogram, but if there's something preventative, something specific doctors want to do, they should do a sonogram. So this gentleman told me that his wife was pregnant, and for whatever reason, they did do some testing, and the doctors discovered that there were some serious issues. The man that told me the story did not want to tell me the issues were, but he said these issues were something that could affect the baby and the mother, and it really wasn't something that to sneeze at. They got this information on the 18th of Elul. 18th of Elul is the birthday of the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe and the Baal Shem Tov, both birthday of both of them. And it's famous how the Alter Rebbe, like the previous Rebbe, before the previous Rebbe went into prison, the previous Rebbe said he was going to regard his captors ka'ayin ve'efes mamash, as if they do not exist completely, as if they're nothing. That's the previous Rebbe decided before going into prison. And you see in his diary, the way he responded to them, the way he acted to them, you could see that he maintained this despite the great danger to himself. He was beaten mercilessly, unfortunately, many times in prison. And it sometimes was connected to this decision that he's going to regard his captors as absolutely nothing. So my friend looked at his wife after they got this news from the doctor, and he said to his wife, "Today is the birthday of the Alter Rebbe, and in the zchus of the Alter Rebbe, I want you to realize, I want you to accept, I want you to be with me on this, that the Tzemach Tzedek's taught that doctors are not allowed to make shverif in hartzen, to make your heart heavy, to make your heart feel bad. The Torah does say you should go to a doctor for a cure, but a doctor does not have the right to make you feel bad. A doctor is only meant to heal. So they decided they're going to have absolute trust in Hashem, that Hashem will for sure help, and that they're going to regard all the voices of nature as if it's nothing. As it says in Tehillim in chapter 93, greater than the sound of the great waters is Hashem's exalted overall. Greater than the sound of the great waters, Hashem is exalted overall. So Chassidus explains that the great waters refer to the sound of nature. Nature can be deafening, and yet a Jew knows that without a shadow of a doubt, that even though there's maybe no room in nature at all for Hashem's salvation to be manifest, but trusting in Hashem means that despite the fact that there's no way in the world that you could be helped, you still trust in Hashem beyond nature. And that trust in Hashem, as the Baal Shem Tov taught, brings Hashem salvation. As the Baal Shem Tov taught, that just as Jews saying Hashem will for sure help, that itself brings Hashem salvation. Anyways, this couple decided they are not going to pay any attention to these words of these doctors. A few months later, they went back to the doctor for another checkup, and it was very deep in the pregnancy, 4 or 5 months in the pregnancy. The doctors reiterated to them that they should not consider carrying the baby full term, because the baby is not going to be okay. Big problems. And although in California there are laws, 4th month, 5th month, this was an exception based upon the doctor's opinion, and they were allowed to abort the baby legally, and they were advised that this would be the best thing to do. But again, they decided they're going to regard the words of the doctors as if they don't exist, and they're going to trust in Hashem, that Hashem will for sure help them. When the baby was born, I just want to mention that there is the Torah does tell us to pay attention to the advice of doctors, and in a situation where the sonogram again is inquisitive, then you have to pay attention to it. But if it's preventative, doctor's giving you certain advice of something you should do specifically, then obviously the Torah does mandate doctors can cure. They just can't make you sheriff and arch. They can't tell you prediction of what's going to happen in the future. Their prognosis of their negative prognosis are not something that you have to pay any attention to. The doctor only has the ability to cure, but again, not the machsheret from arts. So the day of the delivery came. My friend didn't tell me if it was a C-section or not, but it seemed like it was something that the doctors were all coordinated with at the time of the delivery, and there were 19 people in the room, and it was a lot of pressure in the room. The doctors who were there for many years said they never had such intense pressure as they had in that delivery. And Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hatei V'Ametiv. The story happened 4.5 years ago. This boy now is 4 years old. The baby was born healthy, 101%. The man who shared the story with me, the father, the baby who shared the story with me, said, why do I say 101%? Because not only was he 100% fine, but he was born a week before the Alter Rebbe's yahrzeit on the 24th of Teves. And as they decide they want to go on the path of the Alter Rebbe and to only trust in Hashem completely beyond nature, so they merited to name their child after the Alter Rebbe on the Alter Rebbe's yahrzeit on the 24th of Teves. Again, I heard the story from this man directly, and it highlights to us again the idea of the significance of every individual Jew, that their trust in Hashem has ability to bring Hashem salvation. Hashem should never test us. We need to reveal that, but we should definitely approach any situation, no matter what kind of signs there are in nature, signs that we think we see in heaven, whatever it is, the absolute trust in Hashem, that Hashem will for sure help. And this trust of one individual Jew, just like in the story, he and his wife, they just had this trust in Hashem, and they brought Hashem salvation completely beyond nature. That's what we have to approach also ourselves in these last moments of the exile. Absolute trust in Hashem, as we said tonight in Havdalah. Jewish people had light and joy, gladness and honor, and that's we're coming from Parshas Pinchas. The Torah says that Pinchas had the same soul as Elijah the prophet, the Ma'avaser Toiv, the one who tells us the good tidings of the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu. We have to realize the powers that the Rambam says that before we do anything, say anything, or think anything, if we look at the whole world, it's on a scale, and one good thought of one individual could tip the scale and bring Mashiach Tzidkenu immediately, and we see it happen immediately tonight. A good davach, Rabbi Yehuda, good davach, Rabbi David, a good davach Ben Chayil, good davach Pesach Betzalel. Wow, what a plush of a guest. Good davach Rabbi Baruch, good davach Rabbi Beryl, good davach